All right, good morning. We're going to call the meeting of the TRPA Regional Planning Committee to order. The date is Wednesday, March 25th, 2026, and it is about 9:15. First item on the agenda is the roll call to determine quorum. Margaret?
Ms. Alding? Here. Ms. Gustafson?
Here.
Mr. Henigman?
Here.
Mr. Keykefer?
Here.
Ms. Loomer? Ms. Loomer?
Here.
Mr. Settlemeyer? Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. All right. This is optional now. The meeting rules. Should I read that first time or no? Go ahead.
No, you can proceed. It's up to you, Vince. You can keep those for reference, but it's not necessary to read them now.
Okay. All right, great. I don't love reading those. All right, then the first item on the agenda is our public interest comments on the agenda items. Let's see. The second item on our agenda, public comment period for any items listed on the agenda. Any member of the public wishing to address the committee on an agenda item, please raise your hand now, either in person by clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen or by dialing *9 on your phone, and you'll be called on and unmuted by a TRPA staff member. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. This comment period is reserved for items on the agenda. Comments on other matters may be redirected to the public interest comment period before adjournment of the meeting. All right. Are there any members in person who would like to make a comment at this time? No? Okay, then let's see. Sorry, it's been a long time, I feel like, since I've done this now. So anyone online?
Mr. Chair, we have one hand raised online.
Great.
Steve Teixeira, please unmute to make your comment.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Regional Planning Committee. Steve Teixeira this morning on behalf of Tahoe Chamber. I want to address briefly item 5B on your agenda. Those of us who've been around for any appreciable amount of time understand the importance of the Tahoe Keys Marina from an environmental, lake access, business, employment, and community perspective. Sadly, the marina, its facilities, its importance environmentally, and its role as a business and community hub was not properly managed, maintained, or improved over a multi-year period. This led to stark neglect and overall facility condition that could only be described as an environmental and functional blight. Since Suntex acquired the Tahoe Keys Marina in 2022, Chamber and other local representatives have met with company officials on several occasions, attended presentations on their vision and plans for bringing the marina back to life. This requires substantial capital investments, and as noted in your staff report, the work has already begun, and I think they have proven to be a valuable collaborator with the agency and others who are involved in the project. While today's presentation for you is informational, there will come a time when this committee and the governing board will be asked to consider agency approvals, and we have as Tahoe Chamber and will continue to welcome Suntex to our community. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, there are no other hands raised to comment.
Great, thank you. Then we'll close public comment and we'll go on to agenda item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, John Hester here. No changes.
No changes. All right, great. Then I will deem the agenda approved as posted. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. We're now on agenda item 4, approval of the minutes. We have a draft set of minutes from the November 19th, 2025 meeting on page 29 of your packet. Does any member of the committee wish to make a change? Hearing none. Shelley, anything? I always look right.
Mr. Chairman, no, I don't have any recommended changes, but I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 19th, 2025 Regional Planning Committee as presented.
Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone object? All right, looks like the motion passes. All right, so we're on to agenda item 5A, public scoping for joint environmental impact report, environmental impact statement, EIR, EIS for the proposed Tahoe El Dorado, or TED, area plan, a new area plan encompassing the entire unincorporated area of the El Dorado County within the Lake Tahoe Basin. All right, perfect. So let's see. This item you can find on page 209 of your packet. And first, we're going to have Alyssa Bettinger present this item, and then we're going to hear from El Dorado County staff. Alyssa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alyssa Bettinger with TRPA for the record. I am also joined today by El Dorado County staff Thea Graybill and Brendan Ferry, who I will turn it over to in just a couple minutes. Today, we're here to talk about the new El Dorado, or the new area plan in El Dorado County. It encompasses the entire portion of El Dorado County and absorbs the existing Myers area plan. I'm going to give a quick background on this item before I turn it over to the county to go into the details. Next slide, please. So we bring a lot of area plans to RPC, and I think it's important to just recognize that area plans for the agency are a very important part of implementing our regional plan and thresholds. They are a way for local governments to set standards that work for their own communities. And so some of those standards look different in each jurisdiction, but they also help further our regional plan goals, particularly land use, transportation, and housing goals, while giving local jurisdictions some flexibility to sort of do their own thing. Again, this is a new area plan that will cover the entire portion of El Dorado County. It will absorb the Myers area plan, so that existing town center will be incorporated into the new area plan. They're also proposing to expand the Myers Town Center and proposing a new town center designation for Tahoe on the West Shore. In addition, they're proposing a few new multifamily areas. So existing areas that are zoned for single family would allow for multifamily housing in these areas shown on the slide. Next slide, please. And speaking of housing, the area plan would address the phase 2 affordable and workforce housing amendments that our board adopted back in 2023. These, as you may remember, were development standards specifically for deed restricted housing in town centers and multifamily areas. The county is proposing to adopt all of our phase 2 standards except for height in town center. So they are proposing not to go up to that 65 feet of height. And instead, they are proposing a suite of land use strategies that will increase or could increase the overall unit count in El Dorado County, as well as reduce the cost to build deed restricted housing. And so some of these strategies include donating land to housing developers, donating coverage, and then also development rights. And the county will speak to that more. The county, I do want to know that the county did hire an economics firm to do a financial feasibility analysis of their proposed alternatives compared to the phase 2 standards, which is what our, the requirement in our code states. And the analysis found that their alternatives did perform slightly better, but I will note that the analysis also found that both the phase 2 and their alternatives would probably not produce housing on their own, and other subsidies would be needed. So at this point, staff feels confident that the county will meet the requirements to what we call opt out of the height portion of the phase 2 amendments. This information, or this item, is informational only. So we're not asking for a recommendation today, but it would be helpful if you do have input on this area in particular, it would be helpful to hear that today. Next slide, please. So as proposed, the draft area plan does conform with TRPA's regional plan and code. We have reviewed it a number of times. That said, the county has requested the following amendments to TRPA code. And this again is sort of with the understanding that housing is not going to pencil under the conditions with the county's alternatives that were shown in the financial feasibility analysis. The county is looking to sort of get creative with other ways that they could reduce the cost to build. So the first is allowing up to 4 units per parcel in their designated multiplex zones. So this would be above our 15 units per acre that TRPA code allows in multifamily zones. And so this would require a TRPA code amendment. And then the second bullet here, allowing mixed income developments to utilize the phase 2 standards. So this would be like a development that's, say, for example, 70% deed restricted and 30% market rate. They could utilize the phase 2 standards, which has also been requested in the city of South Lake Tahoe. And again, this is not something that our code allows for right now. It would require a code amendment. And I will note that TRPA is, we're moving on a parallel path with our Cultivating Community Conserving the Basin initiative, where we're looking at a number of these strategies, including both of these. And so we're sort of moving on a parallel path here. So if you have any input on these in particular as well, that would be helpful. These intro slides have been very focused on housing, but I do want to reinforce that there's a lot of other non-housing related content in the area plan that the county has put a lot of effort into, so I commend them. And we can also answer any questions about that as well. I will also note that the county is preparing an EIS and they are currently in the scoping period. And this RPC meeting is serving as the scoping meeting for the EIS. As of about 4 p.m. yesterday, we had received 4 public comments on this item. And with that, I will turn it over to Thea with the county.
Good morning, TRPA Regional Plan Committee and members of the public. I'm Thea Graybill, Planning Manager with El Dorado County's Planning and Building Department. I'm here to provide information on the county's new proposed area plan, the TED, the Tahoe El Dorado Area Plan. As Alyssa noted, this will serve as the public scoping meeting to kick off environmental review and solicit input on the TED area plan. Next slide, please. The TED area plan is a comprehensive document that regulates land use in the plan area consistent with the Lake Tahoe Regional Plan and the county's general plan and zoning ordinance. Also, as Alyssa noted, the plan boundary includes the entire unincorporated area of the county in the Tahoe Basin, as you'll see here on this slide. Right now, the only area plan in the county is the Myers area plan. For areas outside of Myers within the county, we have to look to about 3 different planning documents or tools. We are proposing to have one new plan and a one-stop shop at the county. So the goal is there to reduce confusion and create efficiencies. Next slide. The county has held numerous community workshops to get input throughout the process, both in person and virtual. We've completed public outreach by sending postcards, developing a website, an interactive online survey, sending emails, posting on social media, and much more. The feedback received has shaped the draft area plan that is in front of you today. Next slide. Now I'm going to discuss the county's, the TED area plan is a document that addresses a wide range of topics, as you'll see here on this slide. It's organized by chapters or elements, and each element has goals, objectives, policies, and implementation measures on those topics. Next slide. Now I'm going to discuss the county's strategy to comply with TRPA's Phase 2 Affordable and Workforce Housing Amendments. TRPA amended its code to establish incentives for deed-restricted housing projects, which include removing maximum density, increasing building height limits, increasing lot coverage, and reducing or removing parking limitations. Local jurisdictions can amend our area plans consistent with those standards, or we can adopt our own standards and kind of opt out, but we have to demonstrate equivalency. Next slide. And that's what we've done. The county's land use strategy demonstrates just that. We're proposing alternative standards and strategies that are more in line with our rural county and opting out of TRPA's Phase 2 amendments. And here are our 5 proposed strategies. Next slide. Strategy 1, we're proposing to designate Tahoma as a village center. You'll see the boundary on the right of this slide. This is very similar to what Placer County has already done on the other side of the line, the property line up there. The goal is to allow commercial and residential and community serving uses while preserving Tahoma's unique small scale feel. Here on the left or in the center rather, is a rendering of an imagined mixed use project based on the proposed standards. Next slide. So these are the standards. We're proposing again to designate Tahoma as a village center and take advantage of TRPA's Phase 2 amendments for everything besides height. The maximum building height would only allow would allow only to increase to 42 feet maximum instead of the allowed 65 feet for deed-restricted affordable housing projects. These proposed development standards reflect the intimate character of Tahoma. Next slide. So moving on to Myers, strategy 2, we are proposing to expand the boundary of the Myers Town Center. So you'll see on the right-hand side of the slide, the blue shaded areas. That's where we're expanding the town center, or proposing to rather. This would add approximately 6 acres to the town center. Myers represents the most significant opportunity for concentrated mixed-use development that supports year-round economic vitality in the county. On the left, here is a rendering of an imagined affordable housing project based on the standards proposed in the Myers Town Center. I'll get into that more on the next slide. We are proposing to expand the footprint of the Myers Town Center, as explained previously, increase the density to allow 25 units per acre for market rate housing, allow a building height of 48 feet for market rate housing and 56 feet for 100% deed restricted housing, and of course, reduce the parking requirements. Next slide. Great. Here's a visual of the different building height standards as applied to the Myers Town Center. We are proposing to increase building height from what is currently allowed. So what is currently allowed is 42 feet on the left to 56 feet in the middle, and opting out of TRPA's Phase 2 amendments, which again is 65 feet on the right. This offers an incentive for affordability while maintaining a scale that fits the Myers community. Next slide. Strategy 3, we're proposing a new multifamily zone called multiplex residential, which allows single family, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. It's the same building size, could be designed just in different ways. This is not currently allowed by TRPA, as Alyssa noted in her presentation, but it is proposed in TRPA's Cultivating Communities effort, which is currently underway and kind of on a parallel track to ours. Next slide. This zoning type is proposed near the Tahoe Village Center, the proposed village center on the left, Myers Town Center in the center, and then beside Sierra House off of Pioneer Trail on the right. Next slide. Strategy 4 establishes 2 new multifamily housing zones and expands where those zones apply. Next slide. So the last strategy and everyone's favorite. Strategy 5. We're planning on bringing county-owned commodities and developable land to the table to reduce or potentially for no cost for qualified projects. So we've analyzed the proposed 5 strategies compared to TRPA's Phase 2 amendments, and the county strategies are as effective or more at providing deed-restricted, affordable, and workforce housing in our county. Next slide. We've been working on the TED area plan now for a couple of years. We completed Phase 1 and we're wrapping up Phase 2 now, where we're going to be incorporating the feedback received today in a final draft plan. We'll soon be entering into Phase 3, which involves environmental review once we get a final draft plan, finalizing that plan, and then conducting hearings for possible adoption in 2027. Next slide. So the scoping period is open until Friday, April 3rd, 2026 at 5 p.m. Please review the draft area plan on our website and send comments to the email address provided here. We're happy to answer your questions or receive any feedback. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. It's an incredible amount of work looking at everything that's in the packet. Incredible amount of work you guys have done, and you are the only group that took us up on the offer to find their own way of doing it. And I think we really appreciate that. So, well, South Lake Tahoe too, that's right. So no one's here from there. So yeah, really appreciate that, all the work that you guys have done. Any comments or questions from the committee? Shelley?
Thank you. Yeah, I echo that. And I appreciate you approaching this with so much thoughtfulness, and not using some of the maximums that we have permitted. By way of disclosure, I had a Zoom call with Alyssa and Thea and Brendan, and it's a good conversation. I'm not here as a representative of the Fallen Leaf Conservation Coalition, but I have been approached by them because they do have some, I think, well-founded concerns, which they have shared with you in a fairly lengthy memo from Ruth Rich. And I hope that those comments will be taken to heart. Because I think that, as we look for a path forward to ensure that recreation in the Tahoe Basin is sustainable, I think, for example, formalizing user-created trails and paving them is not necessarily advisable, just by way of example. These areas are fragile. They're confined geographically. They have steep slopes, and I understand the desire for increased recreational opportunities in the Tahoe Basin, but, the more you provide, and I understand the theory is to disperse recreation, but I think that if what's being offered is something new and novel, you're going to be actually increasing recreation because people are going to be attracted to new ways of recreating in the Tahoe Basin. So I think it's just kind of a cautionary tale. I think we need to be sensitive to that and sensitive to their concerns. They've been good stewards of Fallen Leaf Lake, and I can understand their concerns about over utilizing a resource. So, and then I guess a broader conversation that the agency needs to have is concerns payouts. And in theory, they are useful in determining whether or not a resource is being used excessively and that the number of people permitted in a particular area is excessive based on environmental impacts. But obviously it requires an intense amount of monitoring, and we need to reconcile the fact that we use payouts to determine the impact of recreational activities in the basin, but do we have a way of really monitoring the impact and reversing course? That's the big problem. When you develop these recreational areas, new recreational areas, people come in, they enjoy them. Once the genie's out of the bottle, it's awfully hard to put that genie back in the bottle. So I just think we need to be cautious about what we do and always remember that our primary goal as an agency is to protect the environment. And those are my comments. Thank you, Mr.
If
Thank
I
you.
may,
And
just
you want to
briefly, just briefly to respond. Thank you, Ms. Aldean, for those comments. I'll just say I'm not a payouts expert, so I'm I'm probably going to defer on that one. But excuse me, but with Fallen Leaf Lake, we have been certainly hear those comments. I mean, it's an amazing, special, incredible place that we all, I go there frequently with my wife, dog, kids, go swimming, mountain biking. We love it. I mean, everyone that goes there does. And I really feel what we're proposing is not a drastic change. That we're not proposing more intensive development there, et cetera. We have been meeting with the Fallen Leaf Lake Coalition in quarterly meetings for the past few years and really working through issues, signage, visitor management, trails, recreation, AIS, et cetera. Anyway, we'll continue that. We did see Miss Rich's comment letter that was attached to the item. I thought that was good feedback, and we need to ensure in the environmental process that we are doing the appropriate crosswalking between prior goals and policies in the plan area statements and where those translate now in our new, more modernized zoning system that we're proposing in the area plan, where we are moving to more of a traditional zoning approach in more developed areas. Outside of those areas, we still are retaining something we're calling conservation subdistricts. They largely mirror what was in the plan area statements if we carried forward goals, policies, and the approved uses in those areas. We're trying to line the plan area statements are, it's kind of I'll just say a dated technology, albeit, they provided tremendous value in the absence of area plans. So it's certainly a useful tool. We're trying to take a slightly more modernized approach to unify standards, kind of like Ms. Graybill said, to make our rules completely consistent with TRPA rules while not losing, of course, the environmental protections and the historic uses that are in those more backcountry conservation wilderness type areas. To further that, I do have a meeting with Miss Rich tomorrow afternoon, actually with Supervisor Lane, although Brooke is not feeling very well today, so we wish her well. But we certainly plan to continue to engage with the Fallen Leaf Lake community to hear their concerns.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Ben?
Thank you. Sorry for my tardiness. In that respect, I was just kind of curious if you went over earlier and I missed it, or if I could get a little bit more explanation of the discussion of the conversion of the commercial floor space, how that's looking, or is there a percentage you're looking at? Because we all know that over the last decades, Tahoe has changed, dramatically when it comes to commercial. I remember going over and doing some shopping in that area at some of the art places that were over there, and they just unfortunately haven't been able to survive this type of internet type web-based economy. And I was just curious if that's what you're meaning or what the discussions have formed around.
Not quite commercial floor area with Fallen Leaf Lake, but we do have a pool of CFA, commercial floor area. It's around 32,000 feet, and it's been allocated to the Myers area plan. So what we would like to do is to take that pool and expand it up to the full area plan boundary. So it would be allowed, that CFA could be utilized in Tahoe or by the airport, in Myers, of course, et cetera. And yes, the conversion process that TRPA went through a few years ago, we certainly want to make that available to the public, where I think it's 300 square feet of CFA converts to a residential unit of use. So that will be, back to one of our prior slides, Appendix B will be a commodities policy that will dictate how we plan to provide commodities like CFA or conversions or residential units of use, coverage, land, to the right types of projects. And I'll just say that broadly, but those primarily would be deed restricted workforce and affordable housing projects. But we could broaden it slightly to include like public service projects. For instance, we've had a conversation with the community college recently about their fire training facility that they're building. They needed some additional coverage. We want to be able to provide coverage to great projects like that in our community, right? And I would even go so far as to say we may expand. The community college is not in the county, right? It's in the city, but it provides a great benefit to Tahoe, to the South Shore, to Lake Valley Fire, which is in the county. So I think we would want to structure our policy to even go beyond our county for the right types of projects, especially, focused on the South Shore. Sorry, Cindy, I don't know if you'll need anything from us, but I think we want to be open. We don't want to pigeonhole ourselves. The goal of producing, this is an investment. The county's going to spend, $1.5 million to build this stack of paper right here. And what that's doing, hopefully, is providing a great return for our communities here on the South Shore and the West Shore.
Thank you. I appreciate that information. Thank you, Chair.
Ben?
Thank you. I wanted to make, I wasn't clear, and I understand some of the tools that you have at your disposal that then, sort of trigger deed restriction. The multiplex zoning, that wouldn't be deed restricted, right? If someone wanted to build 4 unit, use this new multiplex zoning, that wouldn't have a deed restriction on it, right?
I would say not necessarily. I think it could be. I think it could be an option, but we wouldn't. And again, this could be how we structure our policy, right? If they needed, and to further complicate matters, the cultivating communities process is playing out right now, which is looking at sort of a scaled development right system, if you will, where currently, as you know, one development right could either build a 10,000 square foot mansion or a small ADU. I think rightly, the agency, TRPA, is looking at perhaps a new scaled system there to kind of equal the playing field a little bit or incentivize smaller units. So that perhaps could dictate how easy it is for someone to obtain units for, say, a fourplex, if that's an easier process. Say they only need a quarter of a unit now to build 1 unit, and they're building 4, well, that would only be 1 unit, and that may not be too hard to come up with, and therefore they wouldn't need to deed restrict it. If they wanted units from the county and not going through your bonus pool, then we may deed restrict them, if that makes sense, to ensure that they're affordable or a workforce unit.
Thank you.
Just to further clarify, so right now, our rules would allow for for up to a fourplex if it's deed restricted. They wouldn't allow for it if it was not deed restricted. So, but typically if you're building a fourplex, the units are smaller, they're in the same footprint, they're what we call like affordable by design. And so the county is looking at that strategy as sort of a creative way to get or promote more housing in the county without necessarily the need of a deed restriction, because a lot of people just don't want, they're not interested in deed restricting their property.
Yeah, I mean, if these are single lots that basically accommodate single family homes, and I want to build 2 units and I got to deed restrict them, I'm just going to build as big a single family house as I possibly can, and you're going to disincentivize yourself from actually getting more housing. So think about.
Yeah, and that we do have a pool of development rights. The county owns about 160 parcels in the basin roughly. So we've gone through a pretty extensive exercise with TRPA staff to pull or catalog they're called potential residential units of use on those parcels that we own. And we have about 65 roughly. So we want to put those in a pool and be able to provide those at, free or no cost to those types of projects.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Let's see, I had a couple from last night that I wrote down. Sorry. Yeah, I guess one question. Are you guys, I didn't remember seeing it, but it was a very long document, so I might have missed it. But are you providing for those fourplexes more density, height, reduced parking, all of that? Can you remind me what that is, or if it's the same as what we did in phase two?
Yeah, so from the TRPA side, if they're deed restricted right now, they would qualify for the phase two incentives. So, they could go beyond our maximum density standards because that's what we adopted with phase two. They also have a little bit more flexibility with roof pitch and height. So they can go a little bit higher. There is more flexibility with coverage, assuming that they are able to connect into what we call an area-wide stormwater treatment system, which, those are pretty limited. So I would say coverage still is going to be, in most cases, up to that 30%. And then parking, we do have reduced parking for those properties as well.
So, okay, great. So that answers a little bit of what you were talking about. We do provide incentives to deed restrict that allow people to build more on the parcel. So hopefully that incentive is enough because I think we'd like things to be restricted just for workforce. And one other thing that I spoke with Brendan about this morning was just going bigger in the EIS. As you mentioned, this is a $1.5 million multi-year process that, and that's just what you're spending. It's taking TRPA time and a lot of other community time, a lot of political capital. So I think we have to think about that as, we're not going to do this for another 10 years, probably, at least, maybe. So we have to be able to accommodate in this EIS whatever we think we might have to get to at that point, because a lot of what we're doing now should have been done 20, 30 years ago. And so hopefully you guys can push it. One area where that kind of stood out to me was the multi-family zone at 15 units an acre seems pretty low. I mean, maybe that's what you settle on, but I think it'd be great to scope something higher than that, just because we don't know what works. Right now, nothing works. In the future, hopefully, we will start getting housing, economic conditions will change, but in 10 years' time, we might need something more than that to make it work. So those are my two comments.
Thank you, Mr. Honigman. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think we haven't fully flushed this out, but my train of thought, and in talking with Thea and our environmental consultant, Nanette, who's here, I think it would be prudent for us to provide one of our alternatives in the EIR to be the phase two, TRPA's phase two housing standards, so that we are maximizing, that full potential and analyzing the potential environmental impacts of that, just in case, at the end of the day, we end up needing to go to phase two, that we would have analyzed the impacts of that.
Now, since we're working on, excuse me, I've been sick for a long time, barely talk. Since we're looking at our phase three and going even beyond that, are you putting in some of the stuff that we're putting into our EIS so that you could accommodate those changes without having to go through another expensive, long, time-consuming process.
Yeah, this is Thea Graybill for the record. I'll just say that we've started to have those conversations as of like a couple weeks ago and need to be strategic about that. And so we are, we've had those, conversations with our consultant and TRPA staff. And so we're working collaboratively to ensure that those processes are in coordination moving forward, especially in line with, when we start to develop the alternatives.
Great. Thanks so much. Any questions, comments? Nothing? Well, then I just want to take the time to thank you guys again for all the work that you're doing and coming up with a plan that I think works for us, works for our staff, and works for the community, and commend South Lake Tahoe also, who I left out of saying that they went through the same gymnastics to come up with their unique take on our goals. So really appreciate it. It's an incredible amount of work you guys have put into it. John?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to thank the county for the extensive public input process. This is a model of exactly what we had in mind when we created area plans in 2012, where they could tailor things to their own local needs, still fitting within the regional plan. Done a great job doing that. We did a great job taking our sideboards on housing and using what they needed and then coming up with something that I think maybe will be even better in terms of the incentives for housing. So it's great that they put all of their jurisdiction into this plan, and it works with their general plan as well. So it's a model. Thank you guys for doing it, and just thought it was important to get that on the record.
Perfect.
Thank you, John.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. All right. Let's see, that takes us down to agenda item 5B, briefing on the Tahoe Keys Marina redevelopment and expansion project and associated code amendments to TRPA Code of Ordinances, chapters 37 and 90, 2435 Venice Drive, City of South Lake Tahoe, El Dorado County, California. Assessors parcel numbers 022-210-021-032-040-041 and -044. TRPA file number ERSP 2025-0602. Information on this item can be found on page 227. So we're going to get a presentation right now from Julie Roll, and then a couple other people are going to speak about this item. Thank you.
Yes. I'm gonna introduce Julie Roll.
Thank you.
Because we have the same
Okay.
initials. I get her emails, she gets mine. We're both JRs here, but I just wanted to introduce Julie, take a quick moment while she's getting set up. This is Julie Reagan, the Executive Director of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. I'm going to preempt my Executive Director report to mention that Tiffany Good has left the agency. We're all very sad to see Tiffany go, but she has accepted a new position with Sacramento County. So we'll still get to work with her as a colleague. And we have recently promoted Julie Roll into Tiffany's position, taking on a lot of her responsibilities. And I'm so proud to make this announcement in this introduction because one of my favorite jobs at TRPA over the last 22 years has been to be a good talent scout. And I hired Julie a long time ago, and she's been here almost 20 years and is one of our top planners, and couldn't be more proud that she's jumping in for her first presentation in this new role. So with that, thank you, Julie, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm not good at taking compliments, but I appreciate that. I get embarrassed. So anyway, hi, everyone. I'm Julie Roll with TRPA's Permitting and Compliance team. And I'm joined today by Lou Feldman to introduce the Tahoe Keys Marina redevelopment project. I think we're getting our slides up here. Lou is representing Suntex Marinas, who is the applicant. And unfortunately, our representative, Eric Metz from Suntex Marinas, is sick and unable to be here today. So Lou is going to step in his shoes. So the Tahoe Keys Marina is the largest marina in the basin, and has served as a major recreational access point to the lake for more than 50 years. The property has not kept pace with maintenance needs, however, really hasn't been updated over the years. So it's now in need of significant improvements. Some of you may have participated in the board tour last June, and there was a stop at the marina, so you may recall the condition of the site. Suntex Marinas acquired the property in December of 2021 with the intent to revitalize the marina. And they then submitted a recreation application to TRPA May 2025. And while that application is still under review, we wanted to bring the project forward just to introduce it, give you an early overview as we're expecting this to come forward for consideration in the coming months. Next slide, please. As you can see on the proposed site plan, the project entails a complete redevelopment of the upland portion of this project area. And there will also be some improvements to the existing shore zone facilities. And this approach is really consistent with TRPA's regional plan, which emphasizes environmentally beneficial redevelopment. So modernizing aging infrastructure while achieving environmental gain, such as improved stormwater treatment. The applicant is also proposing amendments to TRPA Code of Ordinances, Chapter 37 height and Chapter 90 definitions, which are being reviewed concurrently. And these amendments would allow for increased or additional height for buildings at inland marinas. Next slide, please. This graphic shows the overall review process for the two project components. We've got the code amendments and then the project itself or the permit. So the code amendments will go next to APC for a recommendation and then onto governing board for a decision. And the project permit will most likely go directly to governing board next for decision, although it's undecided if we need to bring it back to RPC for recommendation. So that could happen as well. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Lou, who is going to go through the project details, and he'll touch on some of the key components of the project, as well as some of the anticipated benefits.
Morning, Mr. Chair, committee members, Lou Feldman on behalf of Suntex, and with me today from Suntex is Dave Filler, who is the Chief Development Officer, and sadly, the Vice President of Development, Eric Metz, who some of you have met and has done an incredible job of envisioning and advancing this project, is sick as a dog. He's in town, but is unable to get out of bed, and we certainly wish him a speedy recovery. I do want to acknowledge, at the risk of piling on, Julie Roll has done an amazing job of hitting the ground running, having taken the baton from Tiffany a few weeks ago, and we are on a ambitious fast track, and I don't think we've lost any pace as a result of the transition. So thank you, Julie, I know she's worked beyond her normal working hours, and it's much appreciated. Next slide, please. So Suntex is a private real estate investment trust. It owns over 100 marinas in the United States, coast to coast. And we are, in my experience, very fortunate to have the resources of Suntex and their expertise. As any of you that have been to the marina may have observed, it did not evolve with marina operation expertise as its strength. So we also are fortunate because they have the resources to expedite the improvements. Next slide, please. As you may recall, when Suntex acquired the marina, there were numerous violations and deficiencies that Suntex remedied by entering into a settlement agreement with TRPA that was pretty robust. And all of the settlement agreement requirements have been achieved, including interim BMPs. And one of the really profound achievements, which we'll take a look at in a minute, is there were 305 deteriorating slips, which were not kind to the waters of Lake Tahoe. And those have all been removed and remarkably replaced, having commenced last September. and will be in operation with new high density, environmentally friendly slips this boating season. Next slide, please. Eric has done an amazing job of outreach. We have been collaborating closely with the League to Save Lake Tahoe, the chambers, the CTC, patrons of the marina, local electeds, the California Attorney General's office, among others. We've hosted community meetings, and I will say, having been to a few events over the years, there is an extraordinarily positive reaction to what is being proposed from all of our sectors. We actually asked for this meeting to further the public outreach, wondering if somehow we missed somebody, but to date, we're feeling very positive about the direction that we are proposing. Next slide, please. So the cornerstone of the enterprise is a lot of environmental benefit and public benefit. We will be adopting a paid parking program, which is, we have learned from other projects, does reduce vehicle usage, inspires other forms of transportation. We're creating a promenade around the circumference of the marina that is truly a great public access and pedestrian experience. We're reducing land coverage, obviously improving water quality. We're providing non-motorized access in addition to improving the motorized access. We're also incorporating within a facility, I'll show you in a minute, EMS stations. So police and fire will be able to occupy space, have showers. They're there on a regular basis, performing triage, among other things, incorporating AIS mitigation measures and anticipating the future. All of the new slips are EV compatible. So we are anticipating as things evolve, we will have electric fleets. In collaboration with the league, we're looking at wayfinding educational opportunities, and something that I think is, we use this phrase a lot, but this really is above and beyond. Suntex will be constructing public restrooms to serve the CTC trailhead, not to serve the marina. And we are, of course, neighbors with the CTC, and I think that's a great deliverable. Next slide, please. So our ambitious schedule, and I think, this ambitious schedule needs to recognize that, Suntex has just spent an amazing amount of money to replace 305 slips in a very short period of time. They are ready to roll. So in order for them to scrape the existing improvements and incorporate these environmental benefits, we're going to lean on you guys a little bit to keep us apace. So we hope to this spring take the code amendments. There are two. One is simply a clarification. I think probably somebody doesn't want to admit to a Scribner's error, but in the TRPA code, chapter 90, Venice Drive bisects the Tahoe Keys. It's a residential street that is access to the Tahoe Keys Marina. It's identified in the code as Venice Boulevard. There is no Venice Boulevard. It's also identified in the code as a major arterial, which is like US Highway 50, for example, and it is, in fact, a residential local connector. So correcting that is, I think, fundamentally a no-brainer. And the second amendment is to amend Chapter 37 to allow additional 4 feet of height for the 2-story buildings that we'll walk you through in a minute. And that enables us to comply with the 5 and 12 roof pitch that is required by the city's design guidelines. It's not to, create another story or additional usable space, but architecturally, I think you'll be impressed. And the other code amendment, the other portion of Chapter 37 is to make it consistent with other recreation areas that allow up to 42 feet for certain buildings. And we want to, you'll see, replace what is now a really messy, cluttered storage of boats all over the place into a consolidated, temperature-controlled boat barn that also will provide additional water storage for fire flow. and the EMS facilities that I mentioned earlier, and hope to then proceed to governing board early summer. We'd like to be back before the full board in June. And that would enable us to, do asbestos abatement, demolition, and, scrape the site so that we can really hit the ground running in the spring of 2027 with a 2-year build. So buckle up. Next slide, please. This is the previous existing condition. These slips were literally sinking. Materials were entering the lake. And, I have to say, it's just, great to be in front of you with a client like Suntex that, got rid of this stuff and brought in, the appropriate environmentally sound dock systems. Next slide, please. I just neglected to say something about all these environmental benefits. And I looked at Kim and it reminded me that I goofed. I was supposed to say all of these benefits are in fact consistent with TRPA's environmental improvement program, which they are. And so this is advancing the EIP as well as the other benefits that I described. And thanks for looking at me and yeah. So here you can see the replaced slips. I mean, you'll also see the non-replaced buildings, but the replaced slips are gorgeous. And they're ADA compliant and, as I mentioned, EV compatible. Next slide, please. The existing condition is sad. Water ponding. You can see there's racks with boats scattered here and there. Next slide, please. This is what some folks look at from the Tahoe Keys residential development across the lagoon, and everybody sees coming into the marina. Next slide, please. The left-hand side of this slide, depicts the fresh catch, which many long-term locals recall as one of the great places in Lake Tahoe. And it is no longer operating and it's barely standing. So this, I think, is fairly characterized as blight, and we're anxious to knock it down. Next slide, please. The existing condition had very poor land use. And if you look at the right-hand side of the slide, the bottom, that's the boat launch area. And the boat launch area, you'd see trailers queuing and cars all over the place with restaurant activity and retail activity. The conflict between pedestrians and boaters was dangerous and, again, not well thought out. So next slide, please. The evolved thinking is, I think, really impressive. This reorients the boat launch area. I don't have a pointer, but if you look at the large building, so to the south side of the south side of the facility, where all of the boating activities are isolated and better served, whereas the pedestrian-oriented activities, retail, food and beverage, the promenade, and we have something called the basin in the middle there, which will be a public space for activities, art shows, wine walks, etc. Bifurcating the uses. And there's 4 retail, I say retail, there's 4 buildings surrounding the basin that will have accessory uses as well as food and beverage, and the concessionaires, and there are almost 40 of which that operate out of the marina. They kind of operate out of the back of their cars now. So they'll actually have proper facilities to better serve the public. And we're introducing a dock master building, which is kind of in between the 4 buildings that are the pedestrian-oriented uses, but also front the promenade I mentioned earlier. And that's where the boating activity will be concentrated, as well as new state-of-the-art fueling facilities. And then there is a large structure, which is something that requires the 42 feet of height, which is a multi-use building for boat storage, water tank facilities to address fire flow, and the EMS opportunity. At the very end of that cul-de-sac. Adjacent to the CTC property is the new building that will provide public restrooms for use of the CTC property. Next slide, please. So this is a view of the dock master building, which will consolidate all of the boating uses. Adjacent to the right of that is the boat launch. The promenade is at the frontage. Next slide, please. This is just another view of that. There'll be a crane to take boats in and out, and it will significantly reduce trailer usage because you won't need a trailer if you berth your boat in the water and store it in the winter, and it also reduces the risk of AIS. Next slide, please. This is a view of the boat barn, for lack of a better term, coming down Venice Drive, not Venice Boulevard, but Venice Drive. And you can see there's existing vegetation, some pretty good tall trees, fortunately, that screen the building when entering from Tahoe Keys Boulevard toward the marina. Next slide, please. And then this is looking at the facility across the lagoon from the Tahoe Keys property owners area, Cove East. To the left of that is, again, the boat launch area. And that array of blue tarps and clutter and chaos has been replaced by a sense of order. Next slide, please. Aha, the public restrooms. So this is at the gateway to the CTC property. It's also a trash enclosure. I will point out there is a cell tower that you might observe in this. That cell tower is subject to leases that predated Suntex, and when the opportunity arises years down the road, we hope to relocate that cell tower. Next slide, please. This is the entrance into what we call the basin, the vehicle drop off. Next slide, please. You can see this is the gathering space. There will be 4 restaurants. One will be kind of a beer and burger. Another will be coffee. Another will be kind of a mid-range casual, and another will be more of a fine dining. And we hope to make this a 4-season opportunity. And as you are probably aware, there's 1,600 units at Tahoe Keys. Adjacent to Tahoe Keys is Tahoe Island. Next to that's Gardner Mountain. There's a large residential component that I think would find this an attractive addition. They don't have to drive across town to, experience some recreation. Next slide, please. Again, another view of the basin. And we've tried to create transparency between these buildings. Again, the architecture, I think is deluxe, incorporating, being consistent now with the design standards with the additional 4 feet of height. Next slide, please. You can see here's how the promenade works. Coming around the boat barn, not boat barn, the Dockmaster building and through over towards the restaurants. Next slide, please. We're getting close to the grand finale. So the existing condition, that is what we have today. Next slide, please. And this is what we hope to start construction on in the spring of 2027. And as I looked at this slide, I noticed that we probably need a revision because the fishing charter boat in the bottom of the slide is violating the no wake rule. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And David is here as well, and we appreciate your time.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments from committee members? Shelley.
That was a great presentation, Lou. Thank you. It's a beautiful project. I certainly commend the new owners. What sort of dock flotation technology is being used?
I wrote this down.
The dock floating technology other than styrofoam.
It's extra strength, not Tylenol, but HDPE, which is state-of-the-art material, which is not going to release any materials into the lake.
It doesn't degrade.
Right, correct.
Okay. Have future tenants been identified for some of these retail buildings?
Yes, in fact, most of the existing concessionaires will remain. So, the local presence is going to remain overwhelming. We have had local interest for the restaurant opportunities from qualified locals and are very excited about the level of interest.
That's great. And last question, will the use of the slips at the marina be predicated upon the boat owner's willingness to store their boats on site?
No.
In the boat barn? No. Okay.
You know, and just as an aside, because I found this kind of stunning, there's a substantial number of people that rent slips that live in Tahoe Keys that have docks, but they prefer to rent slips at the marina. And I just thought that was odd, but anyhow, I'm sharing the odd.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone online? Do we have any? No? Oh, okay.
Good morning, Kim Carringer for the record. Lou, I just wanted to say thank you you did a great job of highlighting the environmental benefits of the project. The conversation Lou and I were talking about was this project as proposed is an example of how the private sector contributes to the environmental improvement program. And the EIP, the goal is to accelerate threshold attainment, right, through proactive capital investment. And the private sector is a really important part of that. Marinas play a pretty big role in that. This project would advance our EIP goals and thresholds in aquatic invasive species, stormwater, stewardship and outreach, public access. So that's why when we were talking about it, I just wanted to make sure that we give credit to Suntex to going above and beyond on those EIP benefits. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I was going to bring that up too, that it seems like an amazing project that is going to get us a lot of what we want for the lake without money that we don't have for the lake. So it's exactly what we're trying to encourage. And it's a big project and I've heard nothing about it until now. And there was really almost nothing said about the project, which means you guys did a fantastic job of getting everyone aligned and on board. And it does look beautiful. I'm sadly on the other side of the lake and have no boat, but maybe someday I'll be down to eat at one of those restaurants. But really appreciate the time you took getting together with everyone and making a project that seems to work with the community and to improve the lake. So thank you guys for doing that. And if there's no further questions, I guess we'll move on. Thank you. Thanks. All right, great. Oh, and thank you, Julie. We weren't too scary. We weren't that hard. You did a fantastic job. So thank you for all your work. All right, so that brings us to agenda item 6, committee member comments. Any committee members have comments? Hearing none, seeing none. We will move on. Our final matter of business is our general public comment interest period. Any member of the public wishing to address the Regional Planning Committee on any item listed or not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Individuals or groups who have already commented on items listed on the agenda are not permitted to comment on that same topic. All right, anyone in person wish to make a comment? Seeing none, are there any hands online?
Mr. Chair, there are no hands raised online to comment.
Okay, well then we will close the public comment period. And all we need now is a motion to adjourn. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. The board meeting will begin. Do we know when?
I'll take a risk while Julie's out of the room and speaking with the chair to say they'll be back in 5 minutes for the rest of the board meeting.
All right, the board meeting will commence at 10:30. Thank you.